Welcome to the OhSoSpurs podcast. On this edition of A Coach's View, alongside professional coach JJ, we're going to be discussing Tottenham's 3-0 win and the shifting tactics in the Premier League and why that impacts Tottenham and how it's impacting Tottenham right now. How are you, JJ? You well?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Jim. After a 3-0 away win in the Premier League, those aren't that common. Can't be too bad.
Excellent. Yes, I had a beef Wellington for dinner and it was cooking as the game was going on. I was thinking, please don't ruin it for me. But it just tasted that extra bit better after a 3-0 win. The performance itself, it was one where, you can't really complain. You've scored 3 goals, conceded none. It's much improved performance in multiple areas of the park and lots to be very bright about, particularly when we've got 10 players out injured and we're able to get through a game following a midweek game so convincingly. Excellent. The set pieces in particular, it felt like they were a very conscious thing. But I wanted to ask you before we get into all that, something that confused me as someone who's not a professional coach. At times it looked like we had 2 right wingers. We had Johnson and Kudus stood on the right together. I could not figure out the formation. I don't know if we could start there, if you're able to help try and explain what we were playing. It worked, whatever it was, but what were we actually playing?
Yeah, I think when I saw the lineup beforehand, and obviously, like most people, I saw it in that really odd format that they do, the numeric format. So it takes a few seconds to Tetris it in your mind and get used to where players are playing. But I think what we were going for is a fairly standard 4-2-3-1, with our classic double pivot that everybody loves of Paulinho and Bentancur, and everybody's totally behind. Standard back four with Jed Spence coming back in, and then the idea being that we were going to use Johnson on the right hand side, Siemens off the left, Kudus down the middle, which we know he plays a lot for Ghana in the number 10 as well, and he can play there. And then I think the idea was going to be with Kolo Muani up front. Those three, maybe not all 3 rotate, but you could definitely see Siemens coming into the middle to try and affect the play. Kudus would move out right, and then Brennan Johnson would stretch. He wouldn't necessarily come into the middle or move out to the other side, but he would stretch and he would move up the pitch. And it would tilt the field in a certain way that is going to force Everton to come round. I think one of the factors they were probably thinking about is Jack Grealish plays down the left-hand side, right? So how do you keep Jack Grealish quiet? Is you keep him back, you keep him towards his own penalty area, you don't have him down towards yours. We weren't actually very successful at doing that early on in the game, and it didn't, at the beginning, it didn't quite click and it didn't quite work, but I could definitely see the rationale. I could definitely see it. And there were moments where there's one particular moment which I think is worth leaning on in this way, and I think quite a few people noticed it, is Brennan Johnson moving up on the right-hand side and yelling at Kudus to get out of his space.
Yes.
This was classic. This is what you've been trained. This is what you've worked on the training ground, and one player's doing it and one player's not doing it. And so Brennan Johnson is yelling at Kudus, get out of this space, because if he comes in, he brings in another defender and it all gets it would be 3v2 in Everton's favour and it gets very busy in there. So he didn't want that. So what you want is rotations. And I got super frustrated at that moment because Johnson was exactly right in what you're saying. Kudus got out, but instead of getting out and rotating into space so that they had a through ball option from midfield or for Porro, he moved inside and he moved backwards. And it's those little things. I was delighted that we were a little bit better in terms of our movement and our ability to move the ball through the centre of the pitch. But it's those things that are really going to be worked on. And you can definitely see the coaching staff are trying to figure something out. And I think if we start to nail that kind of thing, we're going to be a lot better moving the ball forward.
Yes, and there were moments when we were going forward where I thought, I'm seeing some attacking patterns coming off here. That's been a thing we've been missing all season. Now, we didn't create a lot in open play. I believe we got to about the 35th minute and we hadn't had a shot from open play. But the moments building up to what could have ended up being a shot were starting to look a bit better. I was going, okay, here we go. 3 or 4 passes are stringing together. And we've said this a lot. These things take a lot of time on the training pitch, and you're playing games every 3 days at the moment, so you don't have any time on the training pitch. But having said that, set pieces are excellent this season in terms of offensively, at least. They've been, and this is where I want to kind of get onto the point of maybe the focus is the set pieces being our predominant threat, and we're going to should kind of settle into getting used to that. We look at Arsenal as an example, 9 goals in open play. No, 9 goals from set pieces, 5 goals in open play. They're 15th for goals scored in open play, I believe, and they're top of the league. And they've got 2 penalties. Spurs going in a similar trajectory in terms of majority of our goals are not coming from, and threats aren't coming from open play, but we're still third in the table. And, you know, you're looking at sides like City and Liverpool, who are typically famous for being technically so superior, have all these brilliant players, outplaying people, and they're all struggling. And it just makes me wonder, do you think the league's just changing in a way that we're going to see Spurs are looking at what the likes of Arsenal are doing and they're going, well, that's actually how you're going to win more games. Get that right first. And then if you play well in open play, hey, that's a bonus. Get both right. We're onto something. But focus first, get the set pieces right, be a constant threat. Am I overanalyzing it, or do you think the whole league might be shifting that way and we've just started to jump on it early?
I think somewhere Tony Pulis is sitting on a chair and he's saying, "Welcome home, my children. I'm ready for you. You are finally embracing what I've been telling you for all these years." But yeah, we were discussing this briefly off air, and it's a copycat league. People see what works and they steal it, and that's coaching in a nutshell. There is definitely, percentage football, set piece football. If you get the buy-in of the players, it is what has been referred to by the players this season as low hanging fruit, right? I think Ben Davis referenced that. And it's absolutely right. If you are willing to check your ego and check your ideology and go for that, then you can always be in a game. And I think that's where Thomas Frank and his coaching staff have set their stall out. They've said, we are not above doing this. We are not above, really causing chaos. We don't mind bringing back the long throw, even though Danzo's throw seems to be getting shorter and teams have figured it out a little bit. But yeah, it's one of those things. We definitely are setting the bar that we are competitive in every game. We're going into every game. We're going to have chances. We are going to be a threat. So if we can keep you out at the other end, there's always a chance that Tottenham can do something in a game, whereas that might not have been the case in the past. And I think a lot of teams in the league are seeing it. There's almost like an embarrassment about using something like a long throw and using set pieces to score goals, because we've had so long with managers wanting to either play really expressive, expansive football or really high press, high energy rock and roll football. And all of a sudden people are like, well, this also works really, really well. So we're going to use that. And lots of teams are using it to great effect this year.
And look, don't get me wrong, I'd rather a Ronaldinho no-look pass any day than a Rory Delap long throw. But you've got to play the game when things change, right? You can't just go against it out of principle and then find yourself in a position where, you're just not competitive with your peers. So maybe it's something we need to, stop getting so concerned about often, and maybe the way we measure performances is going to change over the short term. And then, you know what's going to happen in 2 years' time? Someone will start playing another way and it will completely counter this way. And everyone will start playing that way. We had it was the tick attacker, then it was Gen press, then it was something else, and then it was something else. It just keeps changing, doesn't it? But yeah. But just back to Spurs quickly before we wrap up. The goals themselves, Micky van de Ven, well, he's having a wonderful season output-wise. It does make me think, by the way, if our centre-backs are effective goal scorers in this system, Vuskovic is going to be quite an asset, potentially, given that was his. But anyway, that's looking a bit further in the future. But what did you make of Van de Ven's performance and goals today? He seems to be maturing a bit as a defender as well, a bit less reliant on his pace.
100%. I'm glad you brought up Micky van de Ven, because he is the real success story. I think we maybe thought Papsar would be that story for Thomas Frank early in the season, but he's struggling to get minutes now, whereas Micky van de Ven has absolutely been the one that's taken that step. He's really leveled up in his performance. He's been given captaincy and, responsibility within the team, but he's also in the area that was most important for him. We know how quick he is. We know he's this kind of freak athlete that can run back at 100 miles an hour and snuff things out. But actually, he's using his positional sense a little bit better, so he's not putting so much reliance on his pace to get back in, but he's still using it when he needs to. but he's far more aggressive. You can see it in him. He's going into every game with real aggression. He's mixing it up and getting involved with defenders, having arguments, bouncing people about. He's doing all of the things that were missing from him because he had so many attributes to his game. But the thing was, he wasn't the best in the air and he wasn't the most aggressive defender. Whereas now he really is, and he's really starting to grow into that role. So, yeah, if he keeps on this way and he can stay injury free, he is on a one-way ticket to, sad to say, a bigger club than Tottenham Hotspur if we're not careful.
Or we keep spending loads of money and we finally hold on to these players. You never know.
Give
With a
him
lot
a
more
big
chance.
contract.
Yeah.
Give it to him. Give him the money. Keep spending the money by all means, but give him the money because this is a step change in terms of where he was and where he is right now. Like I said, if you keep him injury free and we can rest him a little bit because he's playing, the load is a bit too heavy at the minute. We need to be able to rotate him. And well done to Kevin Danso, by the way. He was very, very good today. Got his head on just about everything, including Vicario's boots and everybody else. But he has improved massively, like really taken a step, Micky van der Ven, and it's wonderful to see because that's come off the training ground. That the coaches have been working with him on it, and so that's the kind of positivity we want to see across all of the players in the squad. Can they raise the level of the individuals, which obviously is going to raise the level of the team?
Yeah, I'm confident we're going to start holding on to these players now. We're a bigger club than we were, and we seem to have put the stall out verbally that we're here to compete now. So let's see. Anyway, we'll see. In terms of just other players, just to finish on that, I think we have to quickly talk about this midfield dynamic, which is the never-ending debate, which, as you said at the start, the double pivot that everyone loves so dearly under Thomas Frank. It's always, you've got camps of people saying, we can never play well with Palhinha, or Palhinha has completely leveled up our team by filling a hole and giving others a platform we never had. And others who say they're both great, but they don't work together. Do you think they can work together? Or do we have to sign a different profile of midfielder and move one out? Because I thought they were okay today. I didn't think they were bad.
They worked today, right? That's the proof of the pudding is that we do have players out. We've got a couple of profiles that would be important to us with Maddison and Decky still not available and won't be for a long time. I am surprised they've played so many games together, particularly the home games. It doesn't feel like necessarily we need that. But what was really good today, they both did parts of their job, but it was Bentancur today who got into slightly more advanced positions. He had one opportunity. We bombed down the right early on. Lovely work inside the box and, knocked it across the box. Technically, he's such a wonderful player. This is where I want to see him. I want to see him in between the lines. I want to see him moving a bit further forward. And maybe that chemistry will come. But again, I just want to I want to see something slightly different from different games. They both did what was asked of them today. They both had good games and they both provided a bit of solidity when we needed it. Lots of getting involved, nicking balls, big tackles from Palhinha, all of that kind of stuff. So it was good to see. It just might be that they're not going to play every single game as the two in midfield. Or if they do, I want to see a bit like today. I want to see a bit more progressive movement from one of them.
Well, look, most great squads don't have one starting 11 that's the consistent. It's different 11 that's tweaked depending on the opponent and the game type and where you are in a season. So, look, I think all we can say is we've got more midfield options than we had last season, and we're in a better position than we were last season in terms of midfielders. So that's the main positive. And look, Palhinha has certainly filled a big void in terms of a skill set that we had. So, yeah. We'll just finish on quickly the strikers, shall we? Because they, our strikers are struggling to get, it's not clear who our number 9 is. And then there's injuries that have been littered across that team. They all kind of have similarities, but are also very different at the same time. They're all seem to be strikers that like to play alone up front, bring others into the game. You'd probably put Richarlison as the best goal scorer over a season, but Slanky is the best all-round forward who's going to offer a bit more link-up play. And then Tell's obviously a young player who's progressing through his career. But I haven't really seen enough of Muani to know what he is. But do you see much changing? And maybe we've touched a bit on Siemens here as well, because he looked a bit lost at times. You can see he's full of bags of talent, and our strikers are always a bit lost in these games. But is that because of, you know, because we're putting so much focus on being hard to beat right now, that those players as a result are going to find themselves with a bit less support in the way the system's set up to do what they want to do?
Yeah, they're definitely a bit isolated. So I'm a bit disappointed today. I felt Richie should have probably buried that chance that he had, but he did well to work the defender, get in his lower back and get the chance. It's one of those where we haven't seen Solanke. We've got no idea what he's going to do when he comes back and he's fully fit and firing. We've got hopes that he's going to be an important player. I like what I've seen from Colomwani so far. He's definitely growing and building. He's quick in the looks and he's got a nice touch to him. They can't operate if you're going to just bang balls up and they're going to be battling 4 defenders at a time. I don't think any of the strikers that we've got are going to be successful. Even Dom Solanke coming back in is not going to be able to hold off everybody and bring others into play. So we are going to have to, get better at getting the ball to them at the right time and in the right ways. But we're also going to have to make sure that we are providing other options. So we've got to take a bit of load off them. It can't just be clipping it up and hoping. We are going to have to get into good field position, work oppositions in a way that then maximizes where they can go and the positions they can take up to get chances and to create chances. So we need to do more for them as a team, and then we want to see a little bit, little bits of improvement from Tell, from Richarlison. Like I said, we no idea what Solanke is going to come back and do, but Colin Winey, I'm quite happy with in the last couple of games. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, more support for them and a little bit of improvement as individuals.
Because I keep seeing the recurring message of, oh, when Madison's back, it'll all be fixed. I'm not quite sure it's as simple as that. I think equally he's not the most physical player. I think that's just a simple answer to a more complicated problem that we want to have, because it just makes us feel like all happy that it's just very simply fixed. But I'd look at the plus side. I think Siemens is a lot better than what we've seen of him, probably, when things are flowing and it's set up better for him, as are a lot of our strikers. So it will come with time and patience. And there'll be some bumps in the road before we get there. We feel on cloud 9 today. And, it's not that every week. But while it's there, I think you just bask in and drink in the optimistic feeling after a win, as you should, because football is unpredictable. And glory days are short-lived, but as are the miserable days. So you should enjoy them both. But you should make the most of the glory days. That's it, really, JJ. I think we'll wrap up there, shall we? Unless there was anything else top of mind for you.
No, that's it.
Cool. Well, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, Tottenham.